Franklin, Tennessee was the kind of town where mornings smelled of roasted coffee and honeysuckle, and afternoons carried the gentle hum of church bells and porch fans turning lazily in the summer heat. Neighbors waved across the street, children zipped by on bicycles past white picket fences, and gossip traveled faster than the wind rustling through the oak trees. On the surface, it was serene. Everyone knew everyone, but beneath that calm, appearances were often just that, appearances. It was in that quiet, picture-perfect town that Caroline Rivers' life began to unravel, not with explosions or dramatic confrontations, but in small, almost imperceptible ways. A late night here, an unfamiliar scent there, a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. At first, they seemed meaningless, whispers of unease easy to dismiss, until they couldn't be ignored. Caroline had always been a woman of strength. Her beauty wasn't delicate but enduring. She had built her tailoring business from scratch in a small shop off Main Street, her hands stitching dreams into fabric while her mind stayed focused on survival. The people of Franklin admired her, that woman who doesn't need anyone. And while they weren't wrong, what Caroline wanted most wasn't independence. It was peace, the kind only love could bring. She thought she had found it in Gavin Rivers. Calm where she was fiery, steady where she was impulsive. Their marriage had begun with affection and respect, but over the years, warmth had faded into quiet routine. She believed they were solid, until the foundation cracked. It started with phone calls in the hallway, his voice low and tense. Then came deleted messages, a scent of perfume she didn't wear, and vague work emergencies that always popped up after dinner. His eyes no longer met hers the same way. His presence had shifted, like a ghost trapped in the body she thought she knew. Caroline trusted her instincts. They had guided her through every challenge life had thrown her way, and now they whispered a truth she wasn't ready to face. She didn't confront him, not yet. She stayed quiet, observant. She needed proof. Around that time, Gavin began visiting his mother more often. Margaret Rivers was elegant, sharp-tongued, with a gaze that could cut through glass. She had never liked Caroline, said she was too independent, too opinionated, too modern. To Margaret, a wife was meant to serve quietly, not run her own business or speak her mind. Out of respect for Gavin, Caroline bit her tongue. Deep down, she knew her mother-in-law would never forgive her for being the kind of woman who couldn't be controlled. What puzzled Caroline was the sudden closeness between mother and son. Margaret had never been affectionate toward anyone, not even Gavin. So why all these visits? The answer came one night, sharp and devastating. Gavin rushed out, claiming a work emergency, leaving his phone behind. Caroline stared at it, heart pounding. With trembling fingers, she opened it. The messages hit her like a knife. Sweet words, intimate photos, promises of a future shared with someone else. A name kept appearing, Grace. And one message made her world collapse. I'm at your mom's house now. She said I can stay here until the baby's born. I trust her. I left her lungs. Her vision blurred. A pregnant mistress, hidden in her mother-in-law's home. The same woman who smiled at her every Sunday, passing cornbread as if nothing were wrong. The pain was deep, but it didn't consume her. Instead, it forged her. A spark of controlled fury ignited. She wouldn't explode. She would plan. The next morning, under the guise of running errands, Caroline drove past Margaret's house. Gavin's truck was there. She parked a block away and waited. Minutes later, a young woman emerged, 6 or 7 months pregnant, radiant and confident, oblivious that her illusion of secrecy had ended. That was when Caroline realized this wasn't just infidelity. It was betrayal stitched into every thread of her life. By her husband, by his mother, by the family she trusted. She didn't cry. She started the car, calm and cold. The woman driving away wasn't the one who had arrived. In the days that followed, Caroline became an actress. She smiled, cooked dinners, asked about Gavin's work meetings. Every word rehearsed, every glance calculated. If he could lie, so could she, but better. At night, she worked in secret. Screenshots, messages, bank records, all documented and safely stored on a hidden drive. Her shop ran smoothly, clients none the wiser. But inside, she was transforming, rebuilding herself from the ashes of betrayal. Eventually, she reached out to Lauren, a Franklin attorney known for quiet competence and sharp judgment. They met in a small cafe tucked behind the courthouse. Caroline wore a simple blouse and jeans, her hair pulled back. Only the tightness around her eyes betrayed her tension. "I want a divorce," she said, voice steady. Lauren didn't flinch. "Infidelity. Worse," Caroline said. "Disrespect. Public and private." When she showed the evidence, Lauren nodded knowingly. "You have everything you need. We'll do this the right way. You'll walk away with what's yours, and they'll learn what it means to underestimate a woman who plans ahead." Back in Franklin, Caroline played her part flawlessly. She hosted dinners, laughed at her mother-in-law's jabs, endured Gavin's forced tenderness. Margaret still bragged about her perfect son and his perfect wife, unaware that the woman smiling across the table was quietly dismantling her illusion. Caroline even hired Raymond, a retired detective, to follow Gavin and document everything. Grace wasn't a fleeting affair. She had been part of Gavin's life for nearly 2 years, with Margaret's help. They thought Caroline would stay silent, crumble under humiliation. They were wrong. Caroline had been underestimated all her life, and she had had enough. Her reckoning came on a warm Sunday afternoon. Margaret invited them for lunch, as always. Gavin insisted, smiling as if all were fine. Caroline agreed, calm on the surface, razor-sharp inside. That morning, she slipped into a deep red dress and bold lipstick, the armor of a woman whose silence was over. Margaret's house looked pristine. Lace curtains, polished silverware, the scent of roasted chicken in the air. Conversation flowed until Margaret, unable to resist, aimed her venom. "A woman should know her place," she said, smiling coldly. "Those who think they're too free usually end up alone." Gavin chuckled under his breath. Caroline met Margaret's gaze, smiling sweetly. "You're right," she said. "It's a blessing when a woman finally realizes she deserves better than lies." The room went silent. Gavin froze mid-forkful. Margaret's lips pressed into a thin line. Caroline sipped her wine, savoring the moment. That night, under the soft Tennessee moonlight, she knew the time had come. The evidence, the lawyer, the plan, it was all ready. Soon, she would reclaim her freedom, her dignity, and everything they thought they could take from her. Caroline's next chapter would be about justice and rebirth. 2 weeks later, she had a plan. She hosted a dinner at her home, intimate and seemingly celebratory. She invited Gavin, Margaret, and a few close family friends. She called it a special announcement. Gavin assumed it was a pregnancy. Margaret thought it involved a business expansion. Neither had the slightest idea of the night ahead. The days leading up to the dinner were tense. Caroline barely slept, rehearsing every line, every gesture, every moment she would orchestrate. Each night, she faced the mirror, the woman staring back, a soldier ready for battle. She reminded herself why she couldn't back down, why this woman had to finish what she had started. The night before the dinner, Raymond, her private investigator, arrived with the final piece of the puzzle. He handed her a plain envelope. Inside were photographs. Gavin and Grace walking hand in hand out of a prenatal clinic in downtown Franklin, laughing, faces glowing with affection. Caroline studied the images for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "It's tomorrow," she said simply. Then, for the first time in months, she slept, deeply, peacefully, without a single tear. Morning came bright and still. A cool October breeze drifted through her bedroom window, lifting the white curtains in gentle waves. Sunlight spilled across the sheets, warm and forgiving. But inside, Caroline carried a storm poised to break. She rose early, showered slowly, and stood before the mirror, tracing the faint lines on her face. She wasn't mourning her youth. She was shedding the woman who had tolerated lies and disrespect. The reflection before her was someone new, stronger, colder, untouchable. By late afternoon, the house looked like something out of a Southern Living magazine. The dining room glowed under soft amber light. Linen napkins, polished silverware, and a centerpiece of deep red roses adorned the table. Margaret's favorite wine chilled on the sideboard. In the kitchen, Gavin's favorite roast filled the air with the comforting scent of rosemary and garlic. Caroline knew how to set a tone, and she intended to use it to her advantage. By 7:30 p.m., guests began to arrive. Two neighboring couples, her sister Lauren and one of Gavin's cousins, unsuspecting, curious, and eager to see what Caroline might announce. Margaret arrived first, punctual as ever, wrapped in a pale blue dress and her signature pearl necklace. Her perfume lingered long after a stiff greeting. "So lovely to see you, Caroline," she said, pressing a dry kiss to her cheek. "The pleasure's mine, Margaret," Caroline replied, her tone sweet but her eyes sharp as cut glass. Moments later, Gavin appeared, impeccably dressed, radiating the charm that once melted her. He kissed her forehead gently. "You look beautiful," he murmured. "Thank you," she said, calm and controlled. "It's a special night." Dinner began with laughter, clinking glasses, and polite chatter. Caroline played the perfect hostess, smiling, pouring wine, asking questions she barely registered. Across the table, Margaret held court as usual, praising her son endlessly. Gavin feigned modesty, lowering his gaze just enough to appear humble. To the others, they were the picture of family harmony. To Caroline, they were actors in a play she was about to end. After dessert, she rose and lightly tapped her spoon against her glass. The sound rang through the room, drawing every gaze. "Dear friends," she began warmly, "thank you for coming tonight. I wanted to share something important, something that has changed my life. I thought the people closest to us should be the first to hear it." The table went silent. Gavin leaned back, smiling faintly, sure this was the announcement he had been waiting for. "I think everyone enjoys a good story," Caroline continued, her voice steady. "So let me tell one." She began to walk slowly around the table, heels soft on the hardwood floor. "It's about a woman who believed she had everything. A devoted husband, a loving family, and, of course, a wonderful mother-in-law." Her eyes flicked to Margaret, whose smile faltered. "This woman started noticing small things," Caroline said. "Little inconsistencies. Lies. Late nights. Strange perfume. And then one day she discovered the truth. Her husband was having an affair." A ripple of murmurs ran through the table. Gavin's smile froze. Caroline met his gaze. "And the woman he was seeing," she said slowly, "was pregnant." The silence was complete. Gavin's face drained of color. Margaret's mouth fell open. "But that wasn't the part that truly stunned her," Caroline continued. "What shocked her most was learning that her mother-in-law, the very woman who preached family values, had welcomed that mistress into her own home. She gave her shelter, fed her, protected her, all while sitting across from that wife every Sunday, pretending nothing was wrong." She turned to the buffet, picking up a white envelope. Inside were the photographs and documents Raymond had collected. One by one, she laid them neatly across the linen tablecloth. "Here's the proof," she said. "Messages, money transfers, clinic visits, everything." Margaret shot to her feet. "This is an invasion of privacy. You've lost your mind." Caroline's gaze stayed cool. "No," she said softly. "I call it justice." Gavin sat frozen, hands trembling, eyes glistening, not with remorse, but humiliation. Caroline straightened. "I could have screamed or broken things," she said evenly. "But I chose a different approach." She reached for another envelope. "These are the divorce papers, already signed. The request to freeze our joint accounts has been filed. The house, the car, and the apartment we purchased with my money will remain with me." She handed the documents to Gavin. His lips parted, but no words came. Finally, he stammered, "Caroline, please, I can explain." "No, Gavin," she said quietly, almost kindly. "You can't. You had every chance to tell me the truth." Her eyes shifted to Margaret. "And you, congratulations. You got what you wanted. Now you can take care of your son and his mistress yourself. I'm done." The room remained still until someone whispered, "My God." Caroline picked up her purse and walked to the door. "You can all stay," she said softly. "Enjoy the dinner. The house is mine, but I'm leaving." She paused, calm and steady. "Oh, and Grace has been informed. She'll need a new place to stay. Good luck, Margaret." She stepped outside. The cool Tennessee night hit her like a baptism. The air smelled of wet earth and magnolia, and for the first time in months, she felt free. By the curb, a car waited, Raymond behind the wheel. He didn't know the full story, only that she needed a ride. When she climbed in, he glanced at her quietly. "Is it over?" he asked. Caroline looked out at the fading lights of her house. "No," she said, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "It's just beginning." That night, while Gavin endured the oppressive silence of judgment and Margaret sat pale and trembling, Caroline shared a quiet meal at a small downtown Franklin restaurant. For the first time in months, she felt hunger and peace. In the days that followed, Franklin buzzed with whispers. The streets, usually slow and serene, hummed with speculation. Every cafe, every corner, every church pew carried the story, how the perfect couple shattered in one unforgettable night. Gavin stayed hidden for days. When he returned to work, the stares were sharper than knives. Respect he once commanded was gone. Margaret, too, retreated into isolation. The woman who had once ruled social gatherings could no longer face the market. Her silence became her punishment. Grace moved out within a week. The scandal stripped away every illusion. Her pregnancy continued quietly, without the promises or affection that had once sustained her. Gavin turned cold, consumed by court filings and public shame. Caroline, however, was reborn. After weeks with her sister Lauren, she moved into a small apartment near downtown Franklin. She painted the walls soft cream, filled the windowsills with ferns and lilies, letting sunlight flood every room. Every choice, every corner, every color belonged to her. Here, in the quiet of her new home, she legally resumed her maiden name, Caroline Marie Sanders, reclaiming the life she had always deserved. For the first time in years, her reflection smiled back, not as a woman wronged, but as one reborn. 2 years after the night that had changed everything, Caroline had transformed her quiet tailoring shop in downtown Franklin into something far greater than a business. It had become a sanctuary. What was once a modest storefront now hummed with laughter, soft music, and the steady rhythm of sewing machines. The faint scent of lavender candles mingled with the clean aroma of fabric, creating an atmosphere that drew people in, not just for custom dresses, but for comfort, for healing. Her story had spread through Franklin like a whispered gospel of strength. Women who had once tiptoed around their homes began stopping by her shop, asking for small alterations that inevitably turned into long, heartfelt conversations. They came for advice, for solace, for hope. Caroline had become something rare in a small Tennessee town, a living reminder that it was possible to survive betrayal and still shine with grace. Among those who quietly stood by her was Maurice, a longtime client who had originally come for tailored suits but now visited simply for companionship. He had an easy smile and a calm presence that steadied her. He never tried to fix her or erase her scars. He respected her space, her silence, her pace. Their companionship unfolded slowly, like a southern sunset, warm, gentle, inevitable. Some evenings they walked hand in hand along the Harpeth River, where fireflies shimmered in the dusk and the air smelled of honeysuckle. One night, beneath the soft glow of the street lamps, Maurice asked, "Do you think someone can love again after everything they've been through?" Caroline smiled faintly, her gaze tracing the rippling water. "I think people never stop loving," she said. "They just learn to love better, without pretending, without settling for less than they deserve." Maurice's thumb brushed hers. "Then I promise to never give you less than that." For the first time in years, her smile was unshadowed by pain. While Caroline quietly rebuilt her life, Gavin Rivers' world crumbled like a house built on sand. His affair with Grace lost its illusion of romance. Their home became a battlefield of shouting, slammed doors, and bitter silence. When their baby was born, the newborn's cries only deepened the divide. Grace had wanted tenderness, stability, a family. Gavin offered excuses and resentment. The man she had loved had never truly existed. Margaret Rivers, his mother, tried to intervene, desperate to preserve the illusion of a perfect family for Franklin society. But Gavin's patience snapped. "You ruined my life with your advice," he shouted one evening, face flushed with rage. "If I'd stayed with Caroline, none of this would have happened." Margaret trembled but spoke firmly. "You made your choices, Gavin. Now live with them." The words cut deep. Their fragile alliance shattered, leaving both of them alone amid the wreckage. Within weeks, Gavin packed his bags and vanished into a small apartment on the outskirts of Franklin, a place so quiet he could almost hear his own regret echoing off the walls. One morning, as he drove through downtown, he glimpsed Caroline's shop. Through the window, she laughed with a client, sunlight glinting off her hair, a soft fabric draped over her arms. For a fleeting second, their eyes met. Shame tightened in his chest, and he looked away. Caroline saw him too, but felt nothing. No hatred, no sorrow, only a cool, distant pity. Her silence spoke volumes. She had already won. As the seasons passed, Franklin returned to its gentle rhythm. Farmers' markets buzzed on Saturday mornings. Children ran through parks, and cafes filled with chatter and music. Yet Caroline's story lingered, retold quietly, passed from one woman to another as proof that heartbreak could bloom into strength. Her shop evolved into a community. Women no longer came just for dresses. They came to feel seen. Caroline hosted small workshops where they sewed, talked, and sometimes cried together. She taught them to mend more than fabric, to mend themselves. Between laughter and shared tears, they rediscovered their confidence, stitch by stitch. One afternoon, a young woman named Sarah stepped timidly through the door. Her posture was slumped, her voice barely above a whisper. She needed a dress for a new job, she said, but it was clear she was seeking more than that. As Caroline measured the hem, Sarah asked, "Do you think I'll make it?" "I'm scared I'll fail." Caroline smiled gently, smoothing the fabric with practiced hands. "I think you already are," she said. "You just don't realize it yet." That moment stayed with her. Her greatest victory wasn't exposing Gavin or reclaiming her wealth. It was helping other women reclaim their worth. Her strength had become a bridge, guiding others from fear into freedom. Her relationship with Maurice blossomed naturally. He never treated her like something broken. He saw her as whole, a woman who had simply decided to start anew. There were no grand declarations, only quiet moments. Coffee shared on the porch, a steady hand when memories ached, a glance across a room that said, "I'm here." He supported her growth without dimming her light. And Caroline realized, that's what love should feel like. One Friday night, they sat on the terrace of their new apartment, overlooking Franklin's twinkling skyline. Maurice asked, "Do you regret anything?" Caroline considered the warm night breeze brushing her hair. "I regret staying silent for so long," she said softly, pretending everything was fine while my world crumbled. Maurice reached for her hand. "But you came out stronger, didn't you?" She smiled. "I've always been strong. I just needed to remember it." Across town, Gavin sat alone in his apartment, surrounded by unpaid bills and empty bottles. Grace had left, taking their baby with her. His mother ignored his calls. A ghost in his own life, he avoided Franklin's streets entirely. His fall was complete. Margaret, too, faced her reckoning. Once the queen of Franklin's social circles, she now wandered the local market with lowered eyes. When she passed Caroline one morning, she lifted her chin in forced pride. Caroline smiled politely and walked on. That quiet, effortless grace cut deeper than any insult could have. A year later, on the anniversary of her shop's reopening, Caroline hosted a small celebration. The room glowed with soft lights, laughter, and conversation. Women who had once arrived broken now stood tall, radiant. Taking the small stage, microphone in hand, Caroline began, "A year ago, I thought my life had ended. But now I see that ending was a beginning. Pain doesn't just break us, it shows us what we're truly made of." Her eyes swept the room. Her sister, her students, her friends, and Maurice, smiling from the back. "I'm grateful for every piece of it, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the loneliness, because that's how I found myself again." The room erupted in applause. Caroline stepped down, heart light. When her gaze met Maurice's, she smiled. Not the smile of someone who had won a battle, but of a woman who had found peace. She had been betrayed, humiliated, left to rebuild from ashes. But she had turned that pain into art, stitched it into the fabric of a new life. A life that was hers alone, full of color, love, and purpose. You just heard this one from Stories by Sue. If it resonated, don't forget to like and subscribe. What are your thoughts? Share them in the comments, I'd love to hear. Thanks for watching.